Urban Park in San Francisco. Two strikingly handsome men, both in their late 20s, share an intimate moment on a wooden bench under a canopy of blooming cherry blossoms. Evan, with tousled dark hair, piercing green eyes, and a lean, athletic build, wears a fitted navy blazer, white shirt, and slim-fit jeans, his expression soft with affection. Beside him, Caleb, with sharp cheekbones, warm brown eyes, and a charming smile, sports the tailored charcoal sweater and dark trousers, his hand gently resting on Evan's. Their gazes lock, the world around them fading into a dreamy blur, with soft sunlight filtering through the trees, casting a warm glow on their faces. He ignored me for years, but when I vanished, he moved heaven and earth to find me again. Evan's heart shattered the night Caleb walked away, leaving nothing but the echo of a slammed door and a promise to never look back. For 3 years, Evan waited, clinging to memories of stolen kisses under the San Francisco stars, hoping Caleb's silence was just a phase. But when Caleb's name lit up his phone after all that time, Evan was already gone, vanished into a new life, leaving no trace. The city hummed with its usual chaos, the fog rolling off the bay like a ghostly curtain as Evan, now 28, stood on the edge of his new world. He traded the cramped, noisy streets of the Mission District for a quiet artist's loft in Portland, Oregon, where he painted murals that spoke of love, loss, and the ache of starting over. His dark hair was longer now, curling at the edges, and his green eyes held a quiet resilience, hardened by years of unanswered texts and unreturned calls. Back in San Francisco, he'd been a dreamer, sketching Caleb's face in every notebook, believing their love could outlast the world's judgment. But Caleb, with his sharp jawline and warm brown eyes, had chosen ambition over love, climbing the corporate ladder at a tech giant while Evan faded into the background. They'd met at a Pride event 5 years ago, two 23-year-olds drunk on freedom and cheap wine, dancing under rainbow flags as the city pulsed with life. Caleb, fresh out of Stanford, was all charisma and promises, his tailored blazer brushing against Evan's thrift store jacket as they laughed and spun. Evan, an art major with paint-stained fingers, saw forever in Caleb's smile. Their nights were a whirlwind of rooftop parties, late-night diner runs, and whispered confessions in Caleb's tiny apartment. But the cracks appeared fast. Caleb's family, old money conservatives from Marin County, saw Evan as a phase, a distraction from their son's glittering future. "You're not one of us," his mother had said, her voice cold as steel. Caleb didn't fight for them. Instead, he pulled away, burying himself in work, leaving Evan to drown in the silence. By the time Evan left San Francisco, he'd stopped checking his phone for Caleb's name. He packed his sketchbooks, his heart, and his pride, and boarded a bus north. Portland welcomed him with open arms, a city of misfits and dreamers where he could rebuild. He found work painting murals for local businesses. His art splashed across coffee shops and bookstores, each stroke a step toward healing. He dated, too, a kind barista named Leo, a poet named Marcus, but none of them were Caleb. None of them carried the weight of those San Francisco nights. Back in San Francisco, Caleb's life gleamed like polished glass. At 28, he was a rising star at Zenith Tech, his name whispered in boardrooms, his face plastered on industry blogs. But success tasted hollow. Late at night, in his sleek downtown condo, he'd scroll through old photos of Evan, his crooked smile, the way his eyes lit up when he talked about art. Caleb had ignored him for years, convincing himself it was for the best. Evan was too wild, too free, a risk to the life Caleb's family had mapped out. But now, with every promotion, every handshake, Caleb felt the absence like a bruise. He tried calling once, a year ago, but Evan's number was disconnected. He'd searched social media, but Evan had gone dark, his accounts dormant. Panic crept in. Where was he? It was a rainy Tuesday when Caleb's world tilted. He was at a networking event, schmoozing with investors, when he overheard a colleague mention a mural in Portland, a vibrant peace sign. Hartley, Evan's name hit like a punch. Caleb excused himself, his heart racing, and booked a flight that night. He didn't know what he'd say, didn't know if Evan would even want to see him. But the thought of Evan out there, living without him, was unbearable. He'd ignored him for years. But now, Caleb was ready to move heaven and earth to find him again. In Portland, Evan stood on a scaffold, paintbrush in hand, finishing a mural of a phoenix rising from ashes. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd risen, too, from the wreckage of his old life. But as he stepped back to admire his work, a shadow fell across the street, a man in a tailored coat, his face half hidden by the rain. Evan's breath caught. It couldn't be. The rain streaked down Caleb's face as he stood frozen, staring at Evan across the Portland street. Evan, older now, sharper around the edges, was a vision, paint-splattered jeans, a faded flannel shirt, his dark hair catching the wet gleam of streetlights. Caleb's chest tightened. He'd forgotten how Evan's presence could steal the air from a room, or in this case, a city block. Evan didn't see him at first. He was too focused, wiping paint from his hands, laughing with a coworker as they packed up their supplies. The mural behind him was breathtaking, a phoenix in fiery reds and golds. Its wings spread wide, as if it could lift the whole city into the sky. Caleb's throat burned. This was Evan's soul on display, raw and fearless, everything Caleb had tried to bury when he'd walked away. He took a step forward, then stopped. What right did he have? 3 years of silence. 3 years of choosing his career, his family's approval, over the man who'd loved him without conditions. But standing there, soaked to the bone, Caleb knew he couldn't walk away again. He crossed the street, his polished shoes splashing through puddles, his heart hammering louder than the rain. "Evan," he called, his voice barely audible over the downpour. Evan froze, his hand on the scaffold's railing. Slowly, he turned, and when their eyes met, the world seemed to stop. Evan's green eyes, once so open, were guarded now, shadowed by hurt. "Caleb," he said, his voice flat, like he was naming a stranger. "What are you doing here?" Caleb faltered. He'd rehearsed this moment on the plane, but now, faced with Evan's cold stare, words felt useless. "I saw your mural." "I knew it was you," Evan laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "Took you 3 years to notice I exist." "Congrats on the detective work." The words cut, but Caleb deserved them. He stepped closer, ignoring the rain. "I messed up, Evan. I know I did." I thought I was doing the right thing, letting you go, but I was wrong. I've been wrong every day since. Evan's jaw tightened. He wanted to believe him, wanted to fall back into the warmth of Caleb's promises. But the scars were too deep. You don't get to show up and say that, he said, his voice low. You don't get to unravel everything I built just because you're lonely now. I'm not lonely, Caleb said, his voice breaking. I'm lost. Without you. I'm lost. Evan turned away, his hands shaking as he grabbed his paint cans. Go back to San Francisco. Caleb. Your life's there. Mine's here. But Caleb didn't move. He stood in the rain, watching Evan walk away, just as he had 3 years ago. Only this time, it was Evan leaving, and Caleb felt the weight of his own mistakes pressing down on him. He wouldn't give up. Not yet. The next morning, Evan woke to the buzz of his phone. A text from an unknown number. Meet me at the coffee shop on Belmont. Please. See, he deleted it, but the words lingered. He went about his day, painting, sketching, meeting clients, but Caleb's face haunted him. By noon, curiosity won. He walked to the coffee shop, telling himself it was just to end things for good. Caleb was already there, sitting by the window, his tailored coat out of place among the mismatched chairs and hipster baristas. He looked up as Evan entered, his face lighting up with cautious hope. You came, he said. Don't get used to it, Evan replied, sliding into the seat across from him. Say what you need to say, then leave. Caleb leaned forward, his hands clasped tightly. I know I hurt you. I'll let my family, my job, everything else come between us. But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere until you know how sorry I am. How much I still love you. Evan's heart stuttered, but he forced himself to stay cold. Love doesn't vanish for 3 years. Caleb. It doesn't go someone and then show up when it's convenient. I know, Caleb said, his eyes glistening. But I'm asking for a chance to prove I've changed. Please. Evan. Evan stood, his chair scraping against the floor. You had your chance, he said, and walked out, leaving Caleb staring after him. But as he stepped into the Portland rain, Evan's resolve wavered. He hated how much he still cared. Evan couldn't shake Caleb's words. They clung to him like the Portland mist, seeping into every quiet moment. He threw himself into his work, painting late into the night. But Caleb's face, those warm brown eyes, that pleading voice kept resurfacing, pulling him back to memories he'd buried. A week passed, and Caleb didn't leave. Evan spotted him at the edges of his life, outside the bookstore where he painted, at the farmer's market where he bought his coffee, always watching, never pushing. It was maddening. Evan wanted to scream at him, to demand he disappear. But a part of him, the part that still dreamed of San Francisco nights, felt a dangerous spark of hope. One evening, Evan's friend Leo, the barista who'd once been more than a friend, noticed his distraction. They were at a dive bar, neon lights buzzing overhead, when Leo leaned in. You've been off. Man. What's going on? Evan hesitated, then spilled everything. Caleb's sudden reappearance, the coffee shop confrontation, the ache he couldn't shake. Leo's face darkened. He ghosted you for years. Evan. Don't let him waltz back in like nothing happened. I know, Evan said, staring into his beer. But he's different. Like he's finally seeing me. Leo shook his head. People don't change that fast. Be careful. Evan nodded, but his heart was a traitor. The next day, when Caleb showed up at his latest mural site, a community center in southeast Portland, Evan didn't walk away. Caleb stood there, hands in his pockets, his usual polish softened by a plain hoodie and jeans. "I'm not here to push," Caleb said. "I just wanted to see you work." Evan sighed, setting down his paintbrush. "Why now, Caleb? Why not 3 years ago, when I was begging you to stay?" Caleb's eyes dropped to the ground. "I was scared. My family, my job, they had me in a chokehold. I thought if I let you go, I'd be free. But I wasn't. I was empty." Evan wanted to stay angry, but Caleb's vulnerability cracked something open. They talked, haltingly at first, about the past, the pain, the years apart. Caleb admitted he'd quit his job at Zenith Tech, walked away from the life his parents wanted. "I'm done living for them," he said. "I want to live for me. For us." Evan didn't know what to say. He sent Caleb away, but the words lingered. Over the next few days, Caleb kept showing up, not with grand gestures, but with quiet persistence. He brought coffee to Evan's worksite, left sketches of their old San Francisco haunts on his doorstep, each one a reminder of what they'd had. Evan's walls began to crumble. One night, under the glow of a street lamp, Evan let Caleb stay. They sat on a bench in Laurel Hills Park, the air thick with the scent of damp grass. Caleb reached for Evan's hand, and for the first time in years, Evan didn't pull away. "I don't know if I can trust you," Evan whispered. "Then let me earn it," Caleb said, his voice steady. One day at a time, they kissed, tentative and slow, the world falling away. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet, but it was a start. Evan felt the spark of their old love, flickering but alive. But as they parted, a shadow loomed. Evan's life in Portland was his own, built without Caleb. Could he risk it all again? The kiss lingered in Evan's dreams, a fragile bridge between past and present. He woke the next morning in his loft, sunlight streaming through the tall windows, painting his murals in progress with golden light. Caleb's return had stirred something dangerous, a hope Evan thought he'd killed years ago. But trust was a jagged edge, and every step toward Caleb felt like dancing on broken glass. They started small. Coffee dates turned into long walks through Portland's quirky neighborhoods, Caleb marveling at Evan's murals while Evan listened to Caleb's stories of breaking free from his family's grip. Caleb had moved into a modest apartment in the city, taking a job at a small nonprofit focused on queer youth, a far cry from his tech empire days. "I want to do something that matters," Caleb told him one evening, their hands brushing as they walked along the Willamette River. "Like you do," Evan wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at him. He'd rebuilt his life without Caleb, found purpose in his art, his community. What if Caleb ran again? The fear kept Evan guarded, even as their connection deepened. They spent nights cooking in Evan's loft, laughing over burnt pasta, stealing kisses between sips of wine. It felt like San Francisco again, but better, realer, somehow. Yet the past wasn't done with them. One afternoon, Evan got a call from his old friend Marcus, the poet who'd once held his heart. Marcus was in town, performing at a spoken word event, and wanted to catch up. Evan agreed, but when he mentioned it to Caleb, a flicker of jealousy crossed his face. "You're still close with him?" Caleb asked, his tone tight. He's a friend, Evan said, bristling. You don't get to question that. Caleb backed off, but the tension lingered. At the event, Marcus's poetry, raw, aching verses about love and loss, hit Evan hard. Afterward, they talked over drinks, Marcus's hand lingering on Evan's arm. You seem different, Marcus said, his eyes searching. Happier. But careful. Evan didn't mention Caleb, but Marcus's words echoed Leo's warning. Was he being reckless, letting Caleb back in? When he got home, Caleb was waiting outside his loft, his face drawn. I saw you with him, Caleb said, his voice low. Is there something I should know? Evan's temper flared. You don't get to do this. Caleb, you left me. I moved on. You don't get to show up and act like you own me. I don't want to own you, Caleb shot back. I just want you. All of you. The fight exploded, years of hurt spilling out. Evan accused Caleb of abandoning him. Caleb admitted his cowardice but begged for forgiveness. They stood inches apart, shouting, until Evan's voice broke. I loved you, he said, tears falling. And you broke me. Caleb reached for him, but Evan stepped back. I need time, he said, and shut the door. For days, they didn't speak. Evan threw himself into his art, painting a mural of two figures reaching for each other across a chasm. Caleb's absence felt like a wound, but so did his presence. Evan didn't know what he wanted until a letter arrived, slipped under his door. Caleb's handwriting, shaky but clear, I'll wait as long as it takes. I love you. Always. Evan held Caleb's letter, the paper trembling in his hands. Each word felt like a thread, pulling him back to the man he'd loved, the man he still loved, despite everything. But love wasn't enough, not without trust, not without proof that Caleb wouldn't run again. He didn't respond. Instead, he painted his latest mural, a commission for a queer community center, became his refuge. Two figures, one reaching out, the other hesitating, stood against a backdrop of stars and city lights. It was Evan and Caleb, their story etched in color and shadow. Friends noticed his intensity, Leo, Marcus, even his new crew of artists, but no one pushed. They knew Evan was wrestling with something bigger than himself. Caleb didn't give up. He sent texts, left voicemails, each one a quiet plea. I'm still here. I'm not leaving. He showed up at the community center, volunteering to help with youth art programs. His presence a steady hum in Evan's life. One day, Evan caught him teaching a shy teenager how to mix colors, his smile patient and warm. It was a glimpse of the Caleb Evan had fallen for, the one who'd made him believe in forever. Finally, Evan agreed to talk. They met at a quiet diner, the kind with sticky tables and endless coffee refills. Caleb looked nervous, his fingers tapping the mug. I know I don't deserve you, he said. But I'm trying to be the man you needed back then. The one I should have been. Evan studied him, searching for the lie, but found only sincerity. I'm scared, Evan admitted. You broke my heart. Caleb, I don't know if I can survive that again. Caleb reached across the table, his hand open, waiting. Then let me show you. Let me prove I'm here for good. Evan didn't take his hand, but he didn't pull away either. They started over. Slowly dates, long talks, moments of laughter that felt like coming home. Caleb opened up about his family's rejection, how he cut ties when they refused to accept him. Evan shared his own journey, the years of rebuilding, the fear of being hurt again. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. One night, at a gallery showing Evan's work, Caleb stood by his side, proud and unafraid. The crowd buzzed, praising Evan's murals, but all Evan saw was Caleb, his eyes shining with love. They kissed in the corner of the gallery, the world fading away, and for the first time, Evan believed they could make it. But life wasn't a fairy tale. A week later, Caleb got a call. His father was sick, dying, and wanted to see him. Caleb hesitated, torn between his past and his future. "Go," Evan said, his voice steady. "But come back to me." Caleb nodded, his eyes fierce with promise. "I will." Always. Caleb's absence stretched into weeks. He'd gone to Marin County to face his father, to confront the family that had once torn them apart. Evan tried to focus on his work, his murals, his life in Portland, but worry gnawed at him. What if Caleb stayed? What if the pull of his old world was too strong? Late one night, Evan's phone lit up. Caleb's voice, tired but steady, came through. "I'm coming back," he said. "Tomorrow. Can I see you?" Evan's heart leapt, but he kept his voice calm. "Yeah. I'll be here." The next evening, Caleb appeared at Evan's loft, his face worn but his eyes bright. He pulled Evan into a hug, holding him like he'd never let go. "It's over," Caleb said, his voice muffled against Evan's shoulder. "My father, he didn't change. But I told him who I am, who we are." And I walked away. Evan pulled back, searching Caleb's face. "You're okay?" Caleb smiled, a real, unguarded smile. "More than okay. I'm free." They spent the night talking, laughing, rebuilding what had been broken. Caleb moved in a month later, his belongings mingling with Evan's paint cans and sketchbooks. They fought. They loved. They grew. Evan's murals became bolder, infused with the joy of a second chance. Caleb found purpose in his work with queer youth, his heart open in ways it hadn't been before. One spring evening, under the cherry blossoms in Laurel Hills Park, Caleb took Evan's hand. The air was warm, the sky streaked with pink and gold. "I ignored you for years," Caleb said, his voice thick with emotion. "But when you vanished, I realized I'd lost the only thing that mattered. I don't deserve you, Evan, but I'll spend every day trying to." Evan's eyes stung with tears. He thought of the years apart, the pain, the growth. They weren't the same men who danced under San Francisco stars, but they were better, stronger, together. "You found me," Evan said, pulling Caleb close. "That's enough." They kissed, the world blooming around them, a testament to love that endured, to second chances earned through courage and time. Their story wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, a canvas painted with pain, redemption, and hope, a love worth moving heaven and earth to find again.